So I wanted to go into the history of where this question came from. So have you ever wondered why some people are benefiting from actually the work that you put into their relationship or the lives of other people? And a couple of questions and scenarios came to mind when I thought about this question, and it came from, like I said, the first one was relationships. Have you ever dated like someone, like a man, or your boyfriend, and you thought about he became a better man to someone else, or you put in a lot of work for him, and you saw the potential that he had, and you honed it, and you put in that work for it, but he turned out being the better husband for another woman, or a better father to someone else's child, or and he ended up marrying them, and you're still single, or a girlfriend who that you put in a lot of work for her as well, and she ends up being a better woman, look better, because you spent money into her as far as her clothing, what she wears, the material things, and she ended up being a model mansion made out of old bricks. I love that. But it's true, those things happen. Or have you worked for somebody? Hey, Kimberly, how are you, girl? Have you worked with somebody as a boss, and they took all the credit of the work that you put in? You actually went to the extent of actually, doing the reports on time, making sure everything that they required of you was substantial enough for them to get the credit. They got the increase of money, financial status, and everything like that. And all you got was a thank you letter, card, or an award that said a good, well done speech, basically. And friends and family, need I say anymore? We already know how that goes, right? So did you want to add any scenarios to that?
I think you covered that one. Or I guess maybe at work and you do a project and it makes the company better and they decide to let you go.
Yes, that's even better, because that's exactly, somebody out there have experienced that. I have. So I wanted to use a biblical story for this question, and I wanted to cover the story of Saul and David. The Lord gave me this, and it was kind of prominent how their story began and ended, and I wanted to look at two different aspects of this question. First, the planter being the sower, and then the seed being the conception. So and we all know, like I said, we know the story of David and Saul and how it began. But in the beginning, Saul didn't even know that he was being used by God to push David into his purpose as being king of Israel. And in that season where Saul was being used, when in the beginning, when he didn't even know, everything was fine, everything was copacetic, right? It's like, okay, yeah, he's winning everything. Yes, he beat Goliath. He tore him down with a stone and a slingshot. And in the same sentence as he won that war, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna make him my armor bearer, because guess what? He doing so well, I might as well make him, the leader of my army, right? But it became a problem when the women, so we say women, they had to say something. They started making a song and dancing and everything else, talking about, okay, well, Saul slayed his thousands, but David over here, he's slaying tens of thousands. What? Hold up. So of course that rose up jealousy in Saul. He like, wait a minute, hold on. Everything was good until the women started saying something. So women, we got to be careful what we say, okay? We can tear down men, or we can bring them up, okay? so
I mean, they was telling the truth. I was like,
right, we do usually tell the truth, but in the same sense as we telling the truth, they be taking the stuff to heart, right? So with that being said, the jealousy that rose up caused Saul to lose his position, and also turned him against the purpose and the calling of his own life. He went after Saul, after David, in the sense that, it ultimately killed him, right? So now let's look at the planter, which is the sower, which was Saul in this story. And some of us can admit that being used by God sometimes is the setup entryway into someone else's life, right? It's basically we're being placed in their life to lead them to their victory or their blessing. And most of the time, it's kind of like a plot scene. We don't even realize it, but until afterwards, like, did I just set myself up, to be used basically? But God is actually, placing you there. You don't realize that in the beginning. And if you're called in as a great position as this, it's two ways you can look at it. One being a receptive or humble, or you can be like Saul and call it as a reproach of authority. Thinking somebody about to take your title or something like that. In a relationship, at the job, or whatever the case may be, or with family, thinking, I'm the head honcho over here, I'm the cousin, everybody coming to me, and now you trying to take my place, But in reality, it's not that. You can look at it in two different perspectives, as I was saying. The planter, undeniably, like I said, has a proposed disadvantage because they are endowing the inheritance of earthly goods for someone else in their lives, right? And most of the time, like me as myself, those goods is what we've been waiting for, longing for, and ultimately, can't even get, because like I said, the benefits are in favor of the person of the seed of the person. Did you want to add anything to that? No. But the benefit of a planter is not just about you wanting the goods per se, but it comes with responsibility that's invested into the blessing, right? So, and what I wanted to tell y'all, if we look closer at the picture of David and Saul, we can actually see that it's not necessarily just a blessing for David. It was actually a blessing for Saul as well, because if we look at it closer, like I said, Saul killed 1,000, right? Thousands. But David killed or slayed tens of thousands. The sweat and the tears that had to go into the fighting that war was actually, it shouldn't have caused any kind of jealousy on Saul's end. It should have been more of a blessing for David, just because he didn't have to go through the wars and go through the turmoil that David had to face. He was already king. He didn't have to do the things that he had to be placed on David. But he took it as, like I said, a reproach, like, you trying to take my title when he already had it. You see what I'm saying? The Lord was setting him up, to actually be blessed by not having to go through the wars that David had to. But like I said, and most of the time, like, we think, as human, we're thinking externally. So we only think of it as, like, Lord, if you would have just blessed me with that job, I wouldn't have to be begging you for my bills to be paid. But not looking in the back end of that story, if you would have got that job, you would have been set up for losing connection with your family. You would have, lost, had high blood pressure, or even had a sleeping disorder, because you would have had to work so hard to get it. But yes, true enough, your bills would have been paid, right? You know what I'm saying? But you're not looking at the bigger thing, the internal fight that we don't see with our natural eyes is what God is protecting us from. And in the same sentence, the blessing that God is giving others is actually being a blessing on our end as well. But we'll get more into that later. Did you want to add anything with that?
I was just thinking of even like when it talks about the laborers are few and, reaping the harvest and things like that. So the planter is definitely very important, even when it comes to bringing people into the body of Christ. Like, we have the knowledge, understanding, and revelation of God so that we can bring people into the fold. So we do need to have more, we give out of our overflow. So, and we have it to give it. So it's definitely important. I think there's this ministry called Redefine TV. I really like watching them. And the husband of the couple duo, he was talking about how, you can end up being jealous of the person you actually need to learn from.
Exactly. That's
So
right. That's
going
right.
off of what she's saying about how Saul was, jealous of David, he could have been learning from David and actually mentoring David, seeing that, you always should want people who you're training to be able to take it further. That's a sign of a great leader, is that they want people to be better than what they were capable of doing. So
I agree, and that's 100% true. And then the next thing we're gonna look at the seed, which is the conception. Which in this term we're gonna use it as a person, like a noun. We're gonna use that as for you to understand. So some of us are seeds. We actually receive the blessing. That's the seed. So if we think about like I said, this situation, the conception of reaping, the reaping process, the conception process, it actually comes in phases. We know that. So you don't get something overnight necessarily. And in this sense, you don't reap a influential harvest overnight. What is an influential harvest? That's something where you as the planter is actually reaping into someone else's life, and it goes from there. They're actually blessing someone else. So if I am an influential harvest to my sister here, whatever she's learning from me, she's actually pushing it forward to the people that she meets, and actually those who she's teaching. So this situation was Saul actually being a harvest or influential harvest to David, which it could have been vice versa as well. David actually taught us some things from this situation as well. Needless to say, these individuals who you think are a conception or receiving the blessing is actually no more. They were basically in their last stage of the harvest. We be thinking that we're investing in all this time and everything like that, and they just getting blessed. No, actually, it was a season for them to be blessed, and God used us as the harvest part, the actual fruition of the harvest, right? So if you look at it this way, God allowed you to be in their life as the living water next to the planted tree and by the river, right? So you invested in their life, giving them life, what they needed to move forward in order to grow. You understand that? So it's not a hindrance at all. It was actually a blessing in disguise per se. We took it as a thought of our own, but really in actuality it was a blessing, right? Yeah. You want to add something?
I was just thinking too, I think if I lost my thought, but going back to David too, that he actually was that whole mentorship or someone else reaping all your hard work kind of came back into his life when it came to his son Solomon, because David wasn't the one to see the temple resurrected and things like that. That was for his son to build the temple. So David could be like, God, I did all this stuff and you telling me, or even Moses, where he led the people through the desert. God used him to free them from Pharaoh, and then he dealt with them for 40 years. They tried to take him out too. And then he got to see the promised land, but he didn't, he wasn't able to enter the promised land. So, or even Abraham, where he wasn't able to see his seed multiply like God told him, but they all held on to those promises. So.
That's right, and it still came into fruition later in life, right? So we have to be careful of speaking bad on those things that we invest in time and blessings into someone's life. If you think about the word says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And most of the time we always say it's better to give than to receive. No, it says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And that comes from Acts 20 and 35. It says, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring ye ought to support the weak, and to remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. So being that said, it sounds like, in which I received it as, me giving. Actually, I'm getting blessings either way it goes.
That's how you open yourself up to
exactly to the blessings. Not that it's better to give. No, it's saying you receive more by giving more. So planners, which all of us are planners at some point of our lives, you are the byproduct of God. You're used as a gift that a person that sees into their harvest time. It's not a candid position, so it's not something that you just think that, oh, it's not really important to just constantly keep giving. No, it is important, because actually you're historical in that person's life as well as in someone else's life, because it will be transpired into their lives. And if we look at the big background of it all, if we think about David and Saul, if he would have stayed still, if Saul would have stayed still, he would have actually kept his rank a little bit longer and reaped the benefits and received the blessings by just standing still, letting David go forth and fight. Even though he's winning, all you had to do was sit still and let God move. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's all I had to say. That was the gist of it all. Hopefully you guys learned everything, learned something new, learned something that'll help you to understand that it's a benefit to reap into someone else's life and let it grow, because it's historical in your life as well as theirs. It's a blessing.
Yep, and God gives it to you so you can give it. Even I think of, I think it's in Matthew, but it's freely you receive, so freely you give it. So, yeah, don't hoard. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but it don't look good when you hoard.
Yes.
Or you can even think of the talents too.
That's true.
The parable of the talents and how they were able to multiply once they gave their talents and used them, and the one who buried it didn't gain anything. The one that only had one, what did he do? Give it all. Yeah. All right, well, we thank you so much. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Kimberly. We appreciate you guys. We love you so much. All right, have a good night. I like our new camera.
Me too.
Good. All right.